Welcome to today's Local Yokels Podcast, everybody. I just want to say hi. I'm Neil Colley. I'm going to be your host today. First, before we get started, I want to talk about we just got finished with our Feed My Lambs fundraiser that we have been pushing to give away the truck and all that stuff. Just this past weekend, this thing will air probably 5 days afterwards. I just want to say it was a huge success, and we had an amazing day. We raised a lot of funds. We gave away a hot rod truck. Our winner, Richard Smith, congratulations. That was a huge thing, man. We had a lot of work involved in that. And to everyone from Ray Dennison to Bill Russell and all the people that showed up, and my special guest today as well. I'll mention him in a second. He even showed up and helped us out a little bit. But lots of the local politicians, things of that nature, got on board and got supported us this year, as well as all the little guys that like behind the scenes, from Randy and Kay Hendrickson that own Roofworks. They helped me a ton. Josh Miser, Gatling Gun, my wife, my kids, everybody was involved. My brother came all the way from Hot Springs, Arkansas to help us that day. So huge day for everybody. If I forget anybody, I'm sorry, but thank you. We had a successful day. With that being said, my special guest that was there that day is District Attorney for Desoto County, Matthew Barton. Welcome, sir.
Hey, I'm very glad to be here.
Thank you for coming in. And just so everybody's clear, this is not like a last-minute thing. You and I have had this plan for a while. And I told you I wanted to wait till after my fundraiser, right?
That's
and
right.
you're like, hey, that sounds good. I got a couple things going on. We get settled. Be a good kind of time to talk about it once it's closed out. So tell us about one of the ones. I know we were talking about today, I guess really just kind of tell people how long you've been in office, the ones that don't know you, but by now I think they do. Where you're from, how you got to DeSoto County, how long you've been in office, all that good stuff.
Okay, so a little backstory on me is I grew up in South Mississippi in Petal. I tell people Hattiesburg.
I used to say Patel, but it's Petal. That's
yeah,
right,
it's exactly. So I grew up there, and I went to Pearl River Community College for a couple years, played soccer. Thought I'd end up going to Southern after that, but I had a chance to keep playing
Southern
soccer.
Miss.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, but I had a chance to keep playing soccer at a small school in Florida called Warner University, which I would compare to like William Carey in Hattiesburg, something like that. So I went there for a couple years, and I actually got married between junior college and Florida to my high school girlfriend. Her name's Megan. And
shout out to Megan.
Yeah, shout out. So we got married, moved to Florida, finished out school for 2 years. Then we came to Ole Miss for law school. Mm-hmm. And when I was in law school, Megan was working for the Desoto County Schools as a certified occupational therapy assistant. I interned at the DA's office as part of my law school. Under
John Champion. We talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, and so I saw an opportunity in DeSoto County for me professionally. We liked it. Thought it'd be a good place to, set some roots down of our own. So I started a law firm, and I practiced law for a while. My office eventually was on the square. I was partners with Stan Little for a few years.
In Hernando, Mississippi.
That's right.
Yeah.
And along the way, we had a daughter. She's almost 7 now, and I saw an opportunity to run for DA when there was an opening, and now I'm here.
And do you love the private sector more or the public?
So it's a different bag. I really liked being in business. I liked being a business person. I liked working for myself, and I liked helping people on an individual basis.
Yeah.
As the district attorney, I still get to help people, but a lot of my time is more administrative or managing other attorneys or staff.
Yeah, because you got a whole staff full of folks. And
right.
How many ADAs you got now?
So right now we have 9.
9, and that's a big staff,
Yeah.
But we're an ever-growing county with lots of things happening.
Right.
So obviously you need a little bigger staff.
Yeah. So our staff altogether is 20.
Wow.
And so that takes up a lot of my time. Whereas before, every day I was personally interacting with a client, and I enjoyed helping people on an individual basis. But I was on the other side of things then too. So it was nice to help people that needed it. But now that I'm a prosecutor full time, I get to help victims, and that has a different sense of fulfillment. It feels more like what I was called to do. It's what I wanted to do. I just kind of had to wait for my opportunity.
And you're fighting for others. I mean, that's really what you're doing every day. And so I can understand the feeling you get when that like, man, I really helped them get through this. We got the offender prosecuted to the max of the law. And we'll talk about how your viewpoints are on that stuff a little bit. But so the prosecuting side has become a passion once you got over there and you realize, like, I love this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I knew all along that that's what I was gearing up for. But the nature of it is somewhat political. If you don't know somebody, it's hard to get hired in.
Sure.
And I figured, well, if I want to be a prosecutor, I'm just going to have to run for office.
Yeah.
And so it's what I wanted. It's turned out to be just as good as I hoped for. I really do enjoy being on this side of it.
Well, you meet some amazing people. And it's tough to be a prosecutor because, like, you're going to prosecute friends and neighbors and kids and people sometimes, It's a tough gig,
Yeah, people call me and they say, hey, I got this family member, this friend, and I could really use some help. And I say, I understand why you would ask, and I need you to understand why I'm going to tell you no.
Exactly. This person broke the law in a bad way. So
I mean, my friends don't ask me to do a bad job, so I got to do it.
Absolutely. So the tough part about being a DA is if you're really good, you can be popular with a lot of people, but over time, if you're in there long enough, I mean, you've prosecuted some folks as family members and stuff. It's just going to happen in a small community. So getting reelected and having a big, like, happy voter base, I suppose, that's like a fan, from a standpoint of prosecuting. But I think people that are pragmatic, they understand that you're just doing your job and you're trying to do it the best of your ability. Now, some DAs, I would say, is worried about the numbers, prosecution rates, and things of that nature. Is that something that concerns you, Matthew, that you just like, man, yeah, we lost this one, but, because, that sometimes their numbers are more important than the actual cases. Like if they get a case and they're like, man, this is questionable, let's go ahead and push it through because we already got I don't think you do that. I've seen that a little bit. My personal opinion is you can call BS on something and get rid of it because you just know, like, that is not what they're saying it is, just to put them through court,
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have an interest in prosecuting a case that I know I cannot prove. There's no interest in justice in putting someone through that process if you don't have all the cards. And so not every case that get turned in is going to be complete. And that's no fault of law enforcement. Sometimes you do everything you can and you just don't have the cards at the end of the day. Yeah. And so not every case is going to make it to a finish line. It's my job. I tell my guys all the time, you look at a case for what it's worth. You judge the merits. You give it all you can on that case. You get the best outcome you can, and then you just have to move on to the next one. And you can't live in that.
And a lot of times it's out of your control. Once you put it you do the best you can. You're up to a jury. They got to decide. Or a judge. Like somebody puts a sentence on. It's past your control at that point in time. You just present it the best you can. That's your job. Is to try to prosecute them to the full extent of the law and have a little bit of reasoning with it too. Sometimes what the level of extent of the law, that crime they broke. I guess the crime that they were involved with, how far you go with it, Do you feel like that things are getting better on the end of what we're doing here in Desoto County as a group, like between y'all and the sheriff and the police department? I personally, from the outside looking in, I feel like that y'all are doing an amazing job at keeping crime down, sending a message, and I think that's a goal between you and Sheriff Tuggle and the chiefs and all those that, like, hey, we're going to let you know, don't come around here and mess around, whether it be from Tunica, Tate, wherever, Memphis for sure. But is that something you really pride yourself in? Yeah,
that's something I'm very aware of. That's something I pay attention to. When I ran, a big part of my message was Stop Memphis, Save DeSoto, because I knew from being in the courts that so much of the crime stemmed from people that either lived in Memphis or were also breaking the law in Memphis and were on probation there, got slaps on the wrist, and then they came here because they were emboldened by not being punished properly in Memphis. Sure. And so we do keep track of how much of the crime is coming from somewhere else. I think about 60% roughly of the felony crimes that I've been dealing with come from out of DeSoto County. That would include Tunica and Marshall County or Coahoma County, with the vast majority of that coming from Memphis. And so, I think that's an indication to our community that the values here are good, the people here are good, but when you have something that's attractive, other people see it as an opportunity. And when these criminals come here and they're using our interstate, there's going to be drugs in the vehicle. They see nice houses and nice cars and things that people worked hard for, and they're criminals, so they're going for the easy lick, so to speak. It makes us, a target for them. And my job is to make sure that we let them know this is not the place for that.
Yeah, I think you had a quote said, "I'm going to change your address." What'd you tell them?
Yeah, I change a lot of addresses. I think my office is like the #1 travel agency for Mississippi Department of
Parchman's
Correction.
a really good address you like to send people to.
Yeah,
Parchman, Mississippi.
That's my favorite.
That's your favorite spot.
I'm hoping. I think they're going to name a wing after me one
Eventually,
day.
yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, for the ones who deserve it, yeah. I mean, and you know that. So, well, with that being said, like you had a case recently. We were talking about. You just settled yesterday, maybe the gentleman that got 40 years, I think.
Yeah. So his name's Nemechek. It's his last name.
Nemechek.
And he was in Arkansas. He was in a domestic dispute. The police in Arkansas wanted him. He started fleeing from them to try to avoid justice there. He passed from Arkansas through Memphis and into DeSoto County.
High-speed chases.
Yeah, he was outrageous speeds. And he was going southbound on the Interstate 55. There was an 18-wheeler going northbound, and he was driving like a crew cab truck, crossed over the median, hit the 18-wheeler head on. The wreckage was quite surprising. I don't think I've ever seen an 18-wheeler in so many pieces, even from a smaller truck. I guess just the angles were just in the speed.
Yeah.
And it ripped that 18-wheeler to pieces. It was a big fire. They were able to get the perpetrator out of his vehicle. He was fine, but the driver of the semi-truck, and I apologize, I can't pronounce his name.
Sure.
I just can't do it. But he succumbed to his injuries. I don't know if it was immediate or not, but they could not get his body out of the truck. Man. And so when it's all said and done, it was just it was charred. His leg was like severed.
Very graphic.
His shoe was found. His shoes were found on the interstate, several yards away from the truck.
It's amazing what a wreck will do. It's wild.
I can't explain the science behind it, but it was quite a scene, and so we charged him with felony fleeing causing death. It carries up to 40 years. We had a really strong case thanks to good work by law enforcement, and he pled guilty. The sentence was not agreed upon. We asked the judge to pass down as much as we could get. He gave him the 40 years, with 25 of that to serve as a violent offender and 15 of post-release supervision.
Right. So he could get out how soon? If he had best behavior. Yeah,
so we specifically asked that he be designated as a violent offender because the judge has a choice of saying that it was violent or not violent in a case like this. And so with that designation, I would expect him to serve almost all of it.
Wow. Yeah. And he's probably going to be an old man if he ever gets out.
I would hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good job on that one.
Thank you.
Because that guy it ain't tell me people he almost killed just coming down the interstate.
Yeah, and these felony fleeings have become a big problem because people think they can just commit a crime here, and then if they make it to Memphis, they'll get away with it.
Sure.
And so we're cracking down on those across the board because this is an example of worst case scenario. And in every felony fleeing, that is a likely possibility. Mm-hmm. And so we, as a staff, have agreed that we're going to raise the menu price on those felony fleeings. We're going to be asking for as many years as we can get based on the proof and the circumstances. So these people are going to be going to prison for that.
Absolutely. Man, absolutely. And more of it. I mean, I think with the recent phenomenon of the task force that come into Memphis, I mean, you probably know some numbers more than we do. What is the reality of some of that stuff that you're hearing from your counterparts up in Memphis right now? Are you getting any feedback about what they're doing?
Yeah, there's been some communication, and I have not seen any pattern that I can attribute to their presence in terms of an increase of Memphis crime because of it. I can't point and say, well, this is the case that I know that they were scared to commit crime in Memphis because of that high presence, so they came here. So we're not seeing an increase right now. It hasn't been long enough for me to to really speak on it.
Well, I think part of that is they just know, like, it's not a good thing to come down here. You know, the ones that are idiots enough, I just think they're just unaware sometimes of where they're at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they're usually young because they don't realize that, like, this is a different place than up there, and they just don't clearly watch the news or get the word out. But I would say I'm not surprised, but it's between the message that our department heads, I guess chiefs of police, and especially Sheriff Tuggle, you know, he warns them strongly all the time, don't come down here, you know.
Yeah.
And so we have a great law enforcement community when it comes to that. And obviously when it's a felony situation, you get on top of it pretty quick, and I know you work well with them to try to get them to the maximum punishment for the law. So I don't think there's it doesn't surprise me if there hasn't been an uptick. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't surprise me at all. I think they just know better. So I think they're just all calmed down up there a little bit. So
it's a good time for them to just take a break.
Yeah.
Is what I've heard someone say.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's still a little bit of crazy stuff going on up there, but it's getting picked up on pretty quick. They're getting them off the streets. And I mean, the numbers is what I was talking about. You know, talking about like 1,000 criminals being taken off the streets, and a lot of them are young, you know, for sure. And, you know, how do you feel about that, like with the juveniles, you know? Yeah,
so, I mean, the crime is getting younger and younger,
yes.
And the kids are becoming more and more violent, too. And so we're seeing a lot of these, you know, 16, 17-year-old kids that are carrying guns for, you know, auto thefts or robberies and things like that. And these kids, they have no appreciation for the value of someone else's life, and they, I guess, they're conditioned to a certain culture within their friend group, and they're unpredictable. And
sure.
these kids, you know, what used to be just a car theft is turning into, you know, shooting where they're turning into aggravated assaults.
Sure.
And I mean,
a carjacking turns into a murder. You know what I mean? Like, they just don't just take the car and be like, thanks, see ya. They go in and shoot the person. Yes. You know what I mean? It's crazy. So what would you attribute, like, that behavior? I mean, like, it's changed, of course, like you said. Even down here, we see a little bit of that, right? So what would you attribute that to, the change in the youth being so much more aggressive and willing to not value life, you know, like it should be?
I think, and I don't know that I know the exact one thing I can point to, but I think a big common theme that I'm noticing in these kids that are getting in trouble is the breakdown of their family unit.
Yes.
They're coming from homes where they don't have a strong father. Mm-hmm. Mom's trying to do everything, and kids need a stable, loving home. And I'm not making excuses for them, but it's important for people to understand that the family unit is the strength of a community. Mm-hmm. And so when people don't have that, the results are unpredictable.
Sure.
And
I mean,
so
clearly
that's
there's
a big
examples
problem.
of people that grew up in a single mother home that are wonderful people and done great. But if you start looking around at some of the the people committing the crimes and things of that nature, a lot of times it shows that it's like a grandmother's raising them. A lot of times it ain't the single family or the single mom. It's got to where grandma or great grandma's got them.
Yeah, well, you got both parents that aren't paying attention.
Right.
They're in trouble themselves.
Right, and a lot of times it's like, I talked to Stacy Dodd. They run the Hope Center. You know, I know you're familiar with those guys, and part of their thing is mentorship, because a lot of times it's just somebody reaching out and caring about them and showing them that they're special. And so it keeps them off that track a little bit. So those kind of programs are highly important when you start dealing with children. You know, catch them young. You know, and I know Sheriff Tuggle talked about catching them at an early age, start mentoring them, showing people care about them, teach them how to be young men, you know, teach them how to be young ladies. I mean, it's not just men, by the way. We want to clarify that. There are some young ladies out there that are cutting up. And there's other programs like My Girl organization. I've had her on, and she does a great job mentoring young ladies. And she's big in the South Haven area and stuff. And Jennifer Christian. I applaud all those. And I think it goes back to what you're talking about. And since we have such an amazing family dynamic in Desoto County, I think we see less and less of that. Our laws are better. Our overall community as a whole is better. Our schools are better. I think they do an amazing job at teaching and looking out for that. Something I do is trying to feed them. Like, you're trying to keep them fed the nutrition from the standpoint of the haves and have-nots, you know, and there's more and more of those a lot of times as our county grows. But, you know, I can attest to just from my having no expert knowledge, but just being outside looking in, that definitely seems about right. That what you're saying is just the family unit's so important. You know, I was lucky enough to have all those people in my lives, you know, grandparents, moms, dads, everybody. And so I'm fortunate, you know, and maybe you were too, but not everybody gets the same shake, you know what I mean, in life. And so it's not an excuse, like you said, but it's something that can be addressed through mentorship programs, schools getting more involved. And it's just a big task when our county is growing like it is, you know, I mean, it really is. So it's phenomenal growth. We're trying to manage it. I know our supervisors are trying to plan for schools and budgets for your department, the sheriff's department, all those kind of folks, you know. And so it's a tough job. It's not just as easy as like put them up, lock them away forever, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely not that simple. You know, not everyone's going to start from the same starting line, but we're all working towards the same finish line. So we try to meet people where they're at, and when we have a chance to help someone along the way, we do it. You know, my office, for as much as we hand out maximum sentences and quote unquote throw people away, we're helping people too. You know, we have programs in place to try to help people to get on track and to salvage an opportunity for themselves.
Touch on that a little bit, like some of the programs. Explain that.
So, you know, my office specifically has a pretrial intervention program, and in order to get on that program, you have to apply. We have a screening process, and, you know, only people that have, you know, are accused of certain types of crime would be eligible. Usually it's drug crimes or, you know. Like
drug court, things of that nature.
Yeah, this would be a little different than drug court. Drug court's a little more involved, quite honestly. This would be for the offender that needs some supervision, but maybe not as much as drug court.
Right.
And so, you know, it's an opportunity for people to pay restitution, make things whole to their victims, take drug tests, stay out of trouble for a certain amount of time, show progress, you know, go get a GED, whatever they're going to do. And so we help a lot of people through that program. A step up from that is drug court, which is a whole animal by itself.
Yeah, that thing got you, it's got you. You know what I mean? And it's sometimes I feel like, man, they're really tough on these. But then I think they need it. A lot of them need it. You know what I mean? They got to have that, you know. So the other option is prison. So, like, you know, they're giving you a chance there, the judge or the prosecutor, as you say, you know, you give them an opportunity. Like, you know, I know it's a long process and it's going to cost you some money, but there's consequences for your actions. You know, this is trying to teach you to be a better person in society, you know, and that's kind of what you're trying to do before they get there. You know, you can intervene from that standpoint. What's some other things y'all do?
Well, you know, one of the more common ones is what we call non-adjudication. That's where someone says, okay, I'm going to plead guilty. I know I did something wrong. And the court's going to say, well, rather than accepting your guilty plea in this moment, we're going to stick your file on a shelf, and we're going to give you some conditions to meet, some good behavior conditions, some fines, some restitution, whatever. And if you can meet those conditions, you'll come back in a period of years, whether it's 3 years or 5 years, whatever the case may be. And if you've done everything you're supposed to, we're going to find your file on the shelf, and we're going to throw it away, and you have a chance.
Sure.
And in the interim, you're not a convicted felon, so you can still vote, you can still buy a gun, you can still live your life.
Still get a job.
You still get,
all that stuff,
It's not as easy, but you can.
Sure.
And if you take advantage of that opportunity, you have a second chance. If you don't, then what happens is we say, okay, well, you violated the terms that we gave you, did not take advantage of this opportunity. So now you're in court, and we're going to go ahead and accept that guilty plea that you already did, and you're going to be punished according to your behavior since then.
Sure.
And so we do have chances to help people. We're a country of second chances. People want to root for the underdog.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the American way. And so sometimes you don't need to kick somebody when they're down. Like I saw I saw a Facebook post, I think yesterday, where there were people getting baptized in the jail with Sheriff Toggle and the chaplains there.
Yes, he did an amazing job
it's
with
like,
that.
You know, so if you're giving people an opportunity to better themselves and they hit rock bottom, they learn their lesson, maybe the taxpayer does not have to pay for them to learn a lesson while they're in prison. You know, give them skills, give them opportunities, and the ones that want to take advantage of it, that serves to benefit society as a whole.
Sure.
But my job is and the hard part of my job is to determine, okay, who deserves that chance versus who do I need to go to court and recommend a much more harsh penalty. And so I have a lot of influence over those outcomes because I can make a suggestion, and a lot of times it's followed. And as I'm sure we'll get into at some point, sometimes it's ignored, and I don't have a choice at all.
You just gotta
and
do
it just doesn't go the way I want.
Yeah.
But we do have a chance to help people, and we have to balance. What is good for the victim, what is good for society. I represent all the good law-abiding citizens of Mississippi. That's my victim. That's everybody else. And so we're not always going to agree on what the right outcome is, but I'm always going to try to do what I think is right.
I think you're doing great. Again, I mean, just from the outside looking in, man, I mean, like, one of the biggest things that I like to tell people, I say this all the time, we have an imaginary line sitting north of us. It's just an imaginary line. And we got some just different laws that they will put you somewhere you don't ever want to be if you come down here and do the same thing you just did across that imaginary line. It's so incredible that it works that way. But that's what keeps our county safe for the most all these years, in the North Mississippi portion of it all together. The state laws first and foremost, and then, we have this open carry that works well down here, right? And doesn't work so well up in Memphis. But it's because our great citizens, it's guns is not the problem, folks. It's the people that are the problem. My son, before I came on the show today, he come in and he said, "What's your thoughts on a switch gun?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, they got these switch automatic guns. And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't like them. I said, just because I don't think a handgun should be able to do that. You know what I mean? That's a military thing.
Right.
However, I think that still it's a right to bear arms. I don't think we had to, but for anyway, I explained to him, I'm like, it's not the gun, son. It's the person holding the gun, because me and you could have a switch gun, right? Like you too, Matthew, we could have one. And guess what? We're not going to go in town and just spray Kroger with it, so that's an issue up there.
Yeah. And
it's the person holding the gun.
I feel like I have an obligation, just to be clear. We could have one and not do those things,
yes.
but legally having these Glock switches is against the law.
Absolutely, man.
So we, whether you agree with the law or not, that's a separate maybe analysis.
Sure.
But I totally agree with what you're saying. If I had a Glock switch, I would probably shoot hogs with it.
Yes,
right?
yes,
I would have a big old group of them, and we'd be out at the farm saying, "All right, well, let's get rid of a nuisance. This will be fun."
That's right.
Definitely not going to be my concealed carry option.
No. I might shoot yourself with one of those things on accident, so you got to be careful.
That's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not, that's what I was trying to let him know, is it's not the guns nor the bullets. It's the person. You know what I mean? It goes back to culture. It goes back to mentorship, teaching right from wrong. The value of life is highly important, and look, man, it seeps into our communities, like we, as good as we've got it here, we have our little areas that are rough, in certain parts of the towns. Each one of us have that area to where something could pop off every now and then, and say what you want. We got crime here, we
do.
And we have an amazing, amazing group of law enforcement that protects us. Everything from the highway patrol, state troopers, all the way to the sheriff's department, to every one of the municipalities. They all have our best interest in mind at all times.
Yeah, they're working hard.
They're working hard, man. So I want to give them all credit, and so we don't always agree with them. We don't always love what they do, but man, they're there to protect the public first and foremost, and they do a good job. It's hard to be everywhere at all the time. You know what I mean? It really is. So for them, I applaud them. If you're listening, I can't say anybody could say anything bad about our Leo around here.
Yeah, they work very hard.
They do.
And, I wouldn't want to trade places with them.
Shoot, no, man.
I wouldn't do it. And it takes a special person that's called to that work. And, if you see them out there, give them a little support. Let them just say thank you.
Yeah.
It'll go a long way. They deal with so much, and just a little appreciation in a job like that goes a long way.
And they're not all perfect. I know that. Like, there's bad apples in every orchard. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, there just is. So, don't judge them all because of one's actions, and usually those guys will get pulled out of the system pretty quick, because they'll get enough complaints that some leadership's going to be like, all right, we got to get them out of there.
Yeah, I mean, I've dealt with that since I've been here.
Sure.
I had a case where, we prosecuted a police officer that was, he was a South Haven police officer. His name was Tony Herring. It made some news, but, South Haven noticed real quick that they had a problem, and they themselves took care of it. And they came to me and said, look, can we investigate our own guy, or do we need to turn it over to another agency, or what do we need to do? And I said, well, if we're trying to get him locked up as quickly as possible, no one's going to be as fast as you and me. Let's just do it. And that's what we did, and he's in prison right now.
What did he do?
He was providing information to some car theft ring of these, he had
I do remember that. I do remember that. That's just like a year ago, right? Like maybe,
about so. And he was giving them information so they would know where police were and were not. Sure. And, they stole a car. And he was involved in a good bit, but we had a really strong case about one certain incident, and he ended up going to prison for it. Yeah. And I think that even though he was, as you would put it, a bad apple, and I agree with that phrase, he's not a reflection of that unit. The South Haven
or the
Police
department.
Yeah, the department is elite by any criteria, and I think that the fact that they themselves would root out this problem, bring it to me, and then help me prosecute it and make sure that guy went to prison shows more about who they are than what Tony Herring's mistakes show about them.
Absolutely. Accountability. It goes back. We talked about that before, just being transparent, show up. We made a mistake. We allowed this person on the force, and they got out of control, and we handled it.
And and South Haven, they were there with me when we announced it.
Sure.
And I don't think they really caught any backlash because it's like we were saying, if you tell people, hey, this was our shortcoming, and this is what we're doing about it, people want to forgive you.
Absolutely.
They want to move on.
Yeah.
So if you can be honest with people,
yeah, man,
they will support you even when you need a little help.
The word is transparency, man. If you mess up, just say, guys, look, this happened, and it was on our watch, and like we're fixing it fast. We're not going to let it happen again. We're here to protect y'all. We're going to keep you informed. That's a problem, I think, it's not just here, it's everywhere. But, as local people, and I look at DeSoto County, man, it's so fast growing. It's like one big town. It's like, I look at it as it's like one big town, I know we got different city limits, but sometimes, like especially on Goodman Road, you don't know when you want to leave from one to the other. It's like, and we know that there's differences in the departments, but they all have to work collectively together to make sure things work well, just like you do with Memphis. Like you got to deal with them a little bit. Their police departments and prosecution and I guess extradition, things of that nature, back and forth.
We work with Memphis all the time. Actually, my investigators get calls from their investigators every day. Yeah. We share the same. Because we have the same customers.
So right. So they run back and forth across the state line because they know that as soon as they cross there, they're on new land. Somebody's have to work a little hard to find them. But listen, we are really good at finding you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We got some great people. I think Sheriff Tuggle, the manager, we talked about child predators, like we don't think there's any more than there used to be. We're just better at catching them because of the electronic abilities and stuff these days.
Yeah, technology in catching that has really improved a lot.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing more of it. I don't know that means there's more than before, but we are seeing more of it, and I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but I hope we see more because that means we're getting rid of a problem.
Yeah, that's right.
That means we're not letting people get away with it and slide through the cracks. So,
I know what you mean. You're not saying you hope to see more from a standpoint. There's just more of them, but it's not. It's you're catching more. You're catching more.
I want to catch more. That's what I mean.
Right.
We want to catch all of them.
Absolutely.
And we hope that it never happens again. But we know how.
It seems like there's more of an issue. Like when you get online, you're just like, holy crap, how many of those guys are in the system? Like how many of them's working a lot, folks? Like we didn't know before. You know what I mean? Just now, our district attorney, our police departments, our sheriff departments, our state, they're just so good they got these divisions that are just out there trying to find them, so it's amazing. We're just finding them better,
We're devoting more resources to it. We have better tools. Our people have developed their skill sets more, and it's working.
And let's give a shout out to one of the most incredible programs. I'm going to say this right here, Misty Gray and Healing Hearts child advocacy group that helps y'all with that stuff with the predators.
Yeah, we could not function without them. Yeah. They are fantastic. They see the worst things that humans can do to another human, and they come to work every day knowing that the odds are stacked against them as soon as they start.
Yep.
But they fight every day, and so many days they must go home at night and just lay down with a heaviness that's hard to deal with. And I understand it because I feel it sometimes too.
You see it too.
Yeah. And they refer cases to us, and when we have a victim of crime that is a child, they came through Healing Hearts first.
Yeah.
And so they do a great job. We had a trial a couple weeks ago where Misty Gray was an expert witness for us. And so, it was a case where we didn't have a lot of evidence because when these child abuse cases, most of the time it's the word of a victim versus the predator. And there's not people aren't doing this in front of people most of the time.
Right.
And so, and a lot of times we're not finding out about it until way later. Right. And so this was a case that was really hard to prove. We had a 9-year-old victim that wasn't able to disclose until years later. And we were able to get a jury verdict, and we got what we needed. And there's absolutely no way it would have happened if Healing Hearts did not do such a good job. Was this the Viking guy? Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the Viking guy. And then usually they're the ones who are protecting the children. Like they will absolutely, like you get a biker group, they're ready to go kill everybody. You know what I mean? Well, I can tell you right now, he's going to get dealt with, son. I promise you, in prison, somebody's going to get a hold of him.
I won't shed a tear.
I promise you, man, because that was awful. That was awful. I know that couldn't all be let out, but I know that was an awful case. But just a shout out to them, because I know they see the worst of the worst. And some of the sweetest, nicest people, man, like they are just genuine folks everywhere. Every time you meet one of them, they're just amazing. When I talk to them on the phone or whatever, they're so gracious to be wanting to talk to you, or somebody's interested in what they're doing, you know. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have them on. We're going to talk about the delicacy of how to get involved without getting too involved. You know, how do you see it? How do you report it without getting your family tied up into something? And how not to make a false accusation, because you can ruin a person's life with a false accusation. So it's not always 100% the person did it. And you're good. I know this, that seeing the where it's not exactly what it is. You know, if you want to say that. Not saying they're lying, but there's just always, where there's smoke, there's not always fire. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so, you know, when, to that point, look at the source of the information.
Sure.
You know, and so you look at what outside factors may be influencing a child. I think children want to be honest about this stuff. I don't think children want to lie, but you definitely look at, well, what else may be in their ear? What influences during their life, and what do we have in the totality of these circumstances? Sure. And when you have a child victim, you always take it seriously. You always give it everything you have. And
you have to investigate it to the fullest extent, right?
Yeah, there's full stop. You just got to do it.
Yeah, because you don't know. And then, like, there is situations where, you know, family members will allege things just because they're mad at the ex-spouse or whatever. We know that. And that happens, but y'all have to investigate it.
Yeah, and that's why I say you look at the source.
Yeah, every time.
If you got an estranged relative that's maybe somewhat distant to the situation, making a lot of noise, making an accusation, and they really don't have eyes on the situation, but they do have an axe to grind, that's a lot different than when a child comes forward on their own. And you look at, you know, who did the child tell? What were the circumstances? And Misty would be a good person to talk to about statistics and how it relates to honesty. But sure. I will say, as a general rule, kids want to be honest about this stuff. There's nothing in it for them to lie. And so, but those cases are hard because, I mean, if you ever talk to a child, you know, it's hard to get on that level.
Man, it is. And they got to be special people to get there with them. You know what I mean? And I guess get them to tell their story a lot of times, you know, and get the honesty out and get the truth, you know, and it's hard. And making them relive it, that's a very difficult thing. And that goes back to what we're going to talk about here in a little bit, you know, is, you know, coming forward, you know, and talking about it. It's sometimes to someone to step up and you know, tell on their abuser or something like that, it's very difficult because there's this, I don't know what it is, but man, it makes my blood boil when I talk about it. I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, child abuse is just that thing for me. That and domestic violence. I mean, I'm just like, that's another thing. Like, what do you see with that happening? How's that trending in our county? Is it seem like it's on the uptick as well, or is it because our population growth? Or
yeah, I mean, as population grows, those incidents are going to naturally occur. You know, in terms of violent crimes, you know, if you see a shooting or a murder or something, you know, especially concerning, most of the time, everybody kind of knew each other.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes, a lot of times it's domestics, but they always kind of know each other. And so that's kind of the difference between us and maybe some big city crime is that indiscriminate violence that's hard to explain. We don't get that a lot.
Right.
We don't
a little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah, we don't get the randomness. Usually it's personal. And even though it's wrong, we can kind of explain why we got here.
Domestic homicide.
And so with the domestics, you know, the biggest struggle with that is, you have a victim of crime. It could be a man or a woman, but you have a victim. For my example, I may say she, but anyone can be a victim. But let's say she is the victim. She comes forward. She tells the police, please show up to a scene, what have you. And then some time goes by before the case gets to my office. And then by this point, she loves him again. He's manipulated her again. He's pulled her in. She's dependent on him for something, and
financially, whatever.
Yeah, and she can't break that off. She's stuck in a pattern of abuse, and she doesn't want to prosecute anymore.
Sure.
And so we've been working very hard, and I got to give a little shout out to Carmen Beckel in my office. She's our special victim coordinator, and she's been doing a lot of outreach from our office with domestic violence organizations and
House of Grace.
And everybody.
Sharita Drake. I want to drop her name.
Name them all.
I talked to her about an hour ago before we got on here. I love her and what she does, and her and Melissa DeBar and all the folks involved in that organization. They're essential in our community. We only have one domestic violence house. Did you know this?
That's right.
And it's a shame. That's all we got. Because we need much more resources, and they just don't have enough, like it's a struggle for them all the time. So people, if you want to get behind an organization, that is one to get behind.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people that are trying to help on a somewhat smaller scale, and so if someone is listening and you're the victim of a domestic crime and you're having a hard time finding resources, you can call my office, and even if you don't have a case with my office, we will at least try to point you in the direction
connect you.
We'll try to connect you. Yeah. And so that's very important. These domestic cases, the earlier we can get involved with the victim, the more likely we have
succeed,
exactly. And so we definitely see those cases. Anytime someone's strangled or choked, it's automatically considered a felony.
Oh, good.
And so And those can be, we get a lot of those because, just even if it's a brief choking, technically it's a felony. And that's a complicated one to prove because there's not always marks and there's not always witnesses. Sure. And there's not always cooperation from the victim. And so sometimes they stay in city court, sometimes they come to us. We prosecute those as zealously as we can.
But when you got them dead to rights, and there's some man that's just beat this lady within an inch of her life, you're going for everything.
Yeah,
you're putting them you're going to put them under parchment.
I'm kind of with you when you have a child abuser or a woman beater, and
or a man beater. Let's don't just leave it.
I was trying to figure out how to get back to that. I just was correct, and then I didn't mean to exclude, but that type of person has a mindset that makes them especially good for prison, in my opinion.
I don't think you can rehabilitate those things, by the way. My opinion, and I'm no expert. I just, from witnessing it through life, I just don't think,
They are the ones that are most likely to reoffend.
Yeah.
And I say, give them as little opportunity as possible. You cannot reoffend in prison.
Yeah. You can offend with your cellmate, sir. Go ahead. Whatever you want to do. So, yeah, man, I know that we're, our laws down here are really, really, Mississippi's really tough on the domestic violence stuff, which is good. They really punish to the full extent of the law. Sometimes you're like, dang, man, did he even hit her? I don't know. But, son, somebody thought he did. You know what I mean? Because he just got 10 years in parchment, it's nuts, and you got to fight to stay out of that. But when you got them dead to rights, absolutely, everything, man. That's there's no excuse for that. You can run. It don't make you less of a man to run from a woman that's aggravating you,
I think it's smart to run because it keeps you from being in trouble. And even though we see it go both ways in terms of men and women being victims, society hasn't come around necessarily to accepting that men can be victims. And so there's going to be a lot of assumptions that if there's a fight, he started it. And that's not necessarily true. And so it's better to just get away because you might end up getting blamed.
That's right.
And you don't want that.
Oh, I've seen it where the cops showed up and they just take them both to jail because they can't figure out who was the aggressor or not, So, yeah.
Find somewhere to be.
Absolutely. Just get away from them, man. If they hit you, that ain't right. Even if a woman slaps you, just get away. Just get away. Just defuse it, get away. They can call you what they want to call you. Just get away. Save yourself a lot of time and trouble. Just let things cool down. Call the cops, settle it out, whatever. But just get away. Don't put yourself in that position. And on both sides, by the way. But it's hard for a woman to escape it sometimes when they're being perpetrated. Like the man is aggressor, and that's usually what the case is typically.
Yeah, and there's a big mental element too that makes them feel
huge,
trapped.
Yeah, man, because the financial dynamic, the just the power that they hold over them, physically, mentally, all that stuff. It's a difficult thing to try and traverse when you're in that position. I'm sure, and I have no clue. I've witnessed it, been involved with it. I had the House of Grace on, and a lighthearted joke. I was like, man, I think I was abused. You know what I mean? Like, not with my current beautiful wife, but maybe my first time around, I'm pretty sure I was. So, as men, like we're just taught to be strong, don't say nothing, that's another thing, but it goes both ways, but that's one topic I wanted to touch on with you and how you feel about it and how you explain how you go about it. And I think you're doing an amazing job. Mississippi's always been pretty good about that, so a lot of times people are like, well, why don't she just leave? It's not that easy, man. It's just not that easy. And where's she going to go if she don't have a good support system? You have one place here, the House of Grace, and maybe your office might be able to take an individual that houses them for a little bit and kind of gets them some protection, but it has to be anonymous and they have to be in a safe spot for them and their children, by the way. Absolutely. That's another thing we forget about, the kids that come with them.
Yeah, and sometimes the only comfort some of these victims may have is in like a pet. Yeah. And so they're so attached to the one thing that provides them comfort that they don't want to leave a pet. And if the place they're trying to go does not accept pets, they're not even going to leave because of the pet. Yeah. And we think, hey, it's a dog. Like, get out of there. And well, I shouldn't say that because I know how I feel about my dog.
Me too. So, I love you, Garth.
So, sometimes you just have to search high and low and find a place where, hey, they'll take her and the cat.
Right. And that's tough, man. But there's some people I think understand it enough to go, hey, man, whatever it takes to get them in a safe spot, we'll deal with it. And that's great. Shout out to those folks that are doing that for these people. And it's working well I know that they work with all the municipalities and you as well in your office, because there's some very caring people out here that will open up their home to them to allow them to have a safe spot, or safe space, if you will, for them and their kids, and that's those are unsung heroes, sir. There's a lot of them throughout the town. We can name drop a bunch of them. Our county, we have a bunch of them. Also in Tate, Marshall, and I guess Panola. I mean, all those areas are kind of North Mississippi. So I know you don't. That's another thing I want to mention. Your predecessor, John Champion, was a kind of a district DA, if you will. Mm-hmm. Now, are you the first DeSoto County full on? That's all you do.
Yeah, so they split the district basically during the election cycle, and so I was the first one to win the election as a single county. Okay. But when Mr. Morris was appointed to finish up Mr. Champion's term, he did so for almost a year.
Just for DeSoto County.
Just for DeSoto County.
So then what did they do? Put somebody else over John Champion's areas besides DeSoto County? So
we were part of the 17th district. It had DeSoto, Tate, Panola, Tallahatchie, and Yalobusha counties. Okay. And then what they did is they split it to where DeSoto County was by itself, and the other four counties remained together under the 17th. Gotcha. And Jay Hale is the DA there. Okay.
Probably just due to populations and things of that nature.
Yeah, DeSoto County just got so big. Even as a single county district, we are still the third largest district in the state. Right. And most districts have several counties, or at least a couple. And so from a single county perspective, I indicted more felonies than any other county in the entire state. We also closed more cases our ratio for opening and closing cases was better than any district in the whole state. But just in terms of numbers, DeSoto has a lot. Yeah. And that's just because of population. And because our numbers don't indicate that we have a worse problem. It indicates that we do more about it. Sure.
Yeah, you're just more proactive. You do deeper investigation. You get more evidence and things of that nature. You just do a really good job. That's the thing. You also increase the size of your department a little bit. And let's thank the people who allow that, by the way? You want to give them a shout out?
Yeah, so in the state legislature, I have to say Senator Mike McClendon.
Yes, shout out to Mike.
Came through big for me ever since I got here. We had a couple prosecutors that were on the fringe of losing the budget for, and he stepped up and got it done. Kevin Blackwell helps a lot. So I appreciate him. He's been someone that I can call for help in Jackson. He helps me with my budget a lot.
Sure.
And then, we're interesting because even though we represent the state of Mississippi and we're primarily funded by the state of Mississippi, we could not function unless the county supplemented our budget.
Sure.
And they do so in a big way. In both my years of asking for help on my budget, they've given me the votes I needed to grow the office and keep up for any lack of funding that we may have gotten from the state. The state does intend for the counties to take on a certain amount.
Sure.
And there's always a dynamic between the county saying, well, the state needs to pay it, the state says the county needs to pay it. I'm fortunate enough to have a board of supervisors that says, well, regardless of who needs to pay, we're going to make sure Matthew's all right.
Sure.
And so they've given me an extra prosecutor the last 2 years. Each year they've given me one. They've increased my funding for staff. They've helped me with office space. They've been very supportive. I have to give them credit.
Right. So we say the county. These are our DeSoto County supervisors. And how many are they?
There are 5 of them.
Right. And they're essential folks. They kind of create how our whole county works. Like the sheriff's budget comes from there, the sheriff's department. The sheriff's office, that's the Sheriff Tuggle office, but the budget comes for the sheriff's department from the county supervisors, the school district, all that stuff. They are very, they have to be extremely in tune with all the needs of the county, from the municipalities all the way around.
Yeah, if you want to know how the money's being spent, you can look to supervisors, and that's their responsibility.
It's a tough gig, man. I don't know how they get around everybody. I'm telling you, man, because there's a lot going on around here.
It's a lot of math.
It's a lot of math, and I'm not good at math. So I'm gonna leave it up to Ray and all those guys. And you said you have been very fortunate to be able to work well with most of those guys, and they all see your need and they address it, when you need it. So, and applaud them, because man, we got to keep supporting all of our agencies around here. And everybody says, well, yeah, but we need this and we need that. And I'm like, yeah, but you want to be safe before you get on the road, don't you? That's the main thing. Yeah. So anything else you want to talk about that's maybe we missed on a little bit on the details of what your job is about and kind of what y'all focused on?
Yeah, I would just point out, our job is to prosecute felony crimes.
Yeah, not the local misdemeanors or anything.
A felony is everything that carries the potential punishment for 1 year or more.
Okay.
That's plenty to keep us busy. They have lower courts to handle everything else. But, it's my objective to prosecute as zealously as we can and provide the best product for the taxpayers as possible. I raised my family here. It's important to me that this office functions well. And, we work with a lot of different agencies across the state and locally. And it's a fun job. Every day is very different. And we're here to help. I try very hard to be transparent and have open doors. So one thing I would say, though, and I never pass up opportunity to do this, and it kind of leads into the other stuff, but it's very important for parents to be aware of what your children are doing on their phone. And I tell people, you may trust your kid, but you can't trust everybody else that's trying to get to your kid.
Sure.
So be aware of what apps they're using, what social circles they're in, and all that. Because sometimes that's the difference between prevention and being a victim. And so just always pay attention to your kids' phones, even if it starts a fight. Just get over it.
Man, look, because it's all in the best interest of the child, period.
Yeah. We see a lot of crimes solved in kids' phones.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
So look at your kids' phones.
Well, with that being said, this is not why you came in today, but it just happened to coincidentally be this week when we scheduled this, because you and I scheduled this a little while back. We talked about it, but yeah, some stuff popped off this week. Let's talk about it. So the elephant in the room that's all over social media, and that Mr. Barton here just seems to be the most talked about guy in the county right now, maybe the state or tri-state area. So Let's talk about it, man.
All right. Where do you want to start?
Well, just start with what it is and give the people the rundown, because I know there's going to be folks watching this just trying to see what you're going to say about this. So you can talk about it as much as you can. Okay. I mean, we're not here to hurt anybody, like personally me. I have no dog in this hunt. I'm going to stay very neutral from the subject just because of the fact I'm no expert, and you are, sir. And I'm going to let you talk about it.
Yeah, well, you mentioned we're not trying to hurt anybody. I will say I have no regard for people's feelings when it comes to this topic.
Yes, for sure.
So I'm very happy to hurt people.
Blood-boiling conversation.
This is not going to be for everybody, but all right. The simple facts are, Lindsey Whiteside was a youth minister at Get Well Baptist Church in Hernando, and with that comes a certain trust and authority over children. She violated that trust and authority by victimizing one of the students that she was led with, mentoring and helping as a spiritual advisor. Yeah. And so we indicted her. Well, first of all, the sheriff's office was notified of it on November 6th last year. Within about a month, I guess on December 13th, we were able to secure an indictment against Lindsey Whiteside for sexual battery of a child while in a position of trust or authority. And I think that's record speed, actually, to have an investigation begin and an indictment handed down in less than 5 weeks. It was a very coordinated effort. I thought the sheriff's office did a great job. We were involved from the start, and lightning speed. And then all of a sudden, we just hit a wall, because at the time we only had 2 circuit judges, Judge Wilson, Judge Chatham, and they both recused themselves from this case because Judge Chatham had he's had some sort of relationship with a family member of the defendant. In the recusal order, it doesn't really specify a whole lot. But he had a relationship with the defendant's family at some point, and Judge Wilson cited shared community interest with the defendant, which is legal code for we go to the same church.
Yeah, right.
So
the Get Well Church in Hernando.
Yeah, and I don't know if she goes to Hernando or South Haven, but it's a pretty big church in the county. Yeah, and so they both recused themselves, and I'm not saying that to be critical. I would never accuse or criticize a judge for recusing to avoid the appearance of impropriety. Sure. That was a proper thing to do. But as it was, it left me without a judge, and so we had to wait for the Mississippi Supreme Court to appoint a special judge. And this became very important later. When a special judge is appointed, they get what's called a senior status judge, which is a retired judge who is older than 65, but and spent more than 5 years on the circuit court bench and is not practicing law. There's not a lot of them, but there are enough in the state where they can kind of go around and solve conflict cases. So they appointed Judge Andy Howarth from Oxford. Whenever you have a special judge that's not regularly scheduled to be on the bench like our regular judges are, it becomes a scheduling issue. And so when you're trying to get a special judge to come in from out of town, line that up with the defendant, the defense attorneys, our court schedule, because we have regular judges we have to be in front of all the time, it becomes difficult. And so we had a couple dates. It get continued for this reason or that, all normal stuff. But what we probably could have done in 2 or 3 months ended up taking about 10. But still, even getting this all done in 11 months is still actually really fast considering the subject matter. Yeah. But that's because we were ready to go from day one. When I indicted the case, I was ready to go to trial. We had over 64,000 pages of evidence, but we were ready on day one.
Text messages, papers, notes, whatever.
All kinds of stuff.
Written on church letterhead, those kind of things.
No, exactly. I mean, 64,000 pages just of text, and then we had letters that were written by Lindsey Whiteside on Get Well Church letterhead and stationery. That very clearly depicted the inappropriate.
If I don't ask, the people are going to go, why didn't he ask him what was in those things? So now, I know you're going to be like, Neil, I can't tell you,
I can tell you some things.
Okay, well, let's do it.
So these texts showed kind of the progression of I say relationship, but I want to be clear, this was not a romantic relationship. This was you and I have a relationship as acquaintances and friends, it's like, but the relationship here started as a mentor and a student, where she's saying, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, things like that. It progressed into a sexually abusive relationship. Okay. So this is in no way a romantic relationship.
Right. By the way, let's clarify for those who may not be aware of this, which I can't believe anybody would be, but at the ages of the starting of this grooming that we're talking about, the victim was how old?
So when the grooming began, the victim was 15.
Okay.
When the sexual abuse began, the victim was 16.
However, now how old was the defendant?
Almost 26.
Right. So definitely 10 years between them at the time.
Right.
And again, carry on with that. Just want to be clear on what people are listening to.
Yeah, and so this law specifically says that if the victim is between the ages of 16 and 18 and they are abused by a person within a position of trust or authority. So this is a
teacher, coach, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is a specific law for a specific interest in society to protect these kids that are 16 to 18. And a child cannot consent, full stop.
Period. It don't matter how old they are.
Yeah. I can't believe I have to explain that, but there was a witness, and I don't mind name dropping because it was in court. Her name is Ashley Ford. She is a teacher at the school. She is a Sunday school teacher at the church, and she's a friend of the defendant, and she tried to act as if this was consensual whenever she was testifying in court. And so I can't believe I have to explain to some people that a child cannot consent, period.
Yeah.
But anyways, so back to, what's in there. These text messages start out where the victim, she was going through certain struggles in life.
Yeah, as normal 15-year-olds do. Yeah.
And she testified, and I don't mind repeating things that were testified. It's part of a transcript.
Okay.
Certain things, I'll say. She testified of some of the intense struggles that she had with mental health and depression, and I think that any 15-year-old girl or anybody that's been a 15-year-old girl is going to know how that feels. And for this victim, those were an extremely difficult time. And the perpetrator, Lindsey Whiteside, told her, well, hey, why don't we do some counseling sessions? And hey, it needs to be weekly. And so they engage in these weekly counseling sessions where Lindsey Whiteside is learning the very specific vulnerabilities of this child, the questions of spiritual matters and an interest in trying to follow Jesus and the gospel, as well as, mental health concerns and, the typical problems that kids will deal with. And so in these sessions that went on for months, Lindsey Whiteside displayed every typical grooming behavior, and then there was a progression, and she tried to make the victim feel special and say, I can't have anybody knowing, or I can't show favoritism, but you're special, or you're my favorite, but don't tell anybody. And so you got a victim that's saying yes ma'am, no ma'am in the beginning, feeling very isolated and lonely and depressed, having someone you look up to says, hey, you're special. And then an attachment forms. And it progresses from there into an outright sexually abusive and explicit conversation that coincided with sexually explicit conduct, that was perpetrated on this victim. It was, in my opinion, as bad as it could be. You had a victim or a perpetrator, a child predator, really, who was pretty much ingrained in this child's life to the point where she'd even kind of weaseled her way into the family's life. The victim had parents that cared a lot about her and younger siblings. And
grandparents and everybody.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah. And Lindsey Whiteside kind of weaseled her way into that family where she could have dinner with the family and she could, babysit the younger kids and things like that. And really gained the trust of everybody. Mm-hmm. And then the manipulation set in where Lindsey Whiteside would buy concert tickets for the parents and say, hey, why don't y'all take a load off? Y'all can go to this concert out of town and I'll take care of the kids. Don't worry about it. And then Lindsey Whiteside is sexually assaulting a minor while her parents are gone because she had orchestrated it all. Lindsey Whiteside would say, hey, I got you reservations at this restaurant if y'all want to take a load off. Well, this family's thinking, hey, we have this pastor in our church who's kind of become somewhat like family to us, and she's just being so nice. Isn't that wonderful? They have no idea there's this wolf in sheep's clothing in their house.
That's a good word. Yeah, that's a good phrase.
Yeah. Or a wolf in preacher's clothing, I may say.
Exactly.
And so the manner of manipulation was extreme. And when Lindsey was working for the church, she had logistical control over planning certain youth trips. Where are the kids going to sleep? Where are their rooms going to be? Where are they going to sit on the bus? Things like that. And she would use that authority to isolate the victim so that there would be an opportunity for continued sexual abuse. And it was a repeated thing. This was not a one-time lapse in judgment or an impulse decision. This was something that was repeatedly done, and every time it was done, it was a renewed decision to break the law. These text messages would show where Lindsey was telling the victim, hey, make sure you delete all these, or hey, I don't want to go to jail, so, delete this stuff, or she would hint at, law enforcement monitoring communication. She would say, hey, I can't talk to you while I'm logged into my church server or my church computer. I don't want them to know. I can't have them catching me or finding out. And so, Lindsey Whiteside absolutely knew that, one, this is morally reprehensible, and two, it is legally wrong. And yet she calculated and planned this over a several-month period and then started perpetrating this abuse for several more months. Almost a year in total, if you include the grooming and the sexual abuse. The sexual abuse was about 5 or 6 months, and it was repeated. She was trying to provide the minor with alcohol to reduce her judgment. It's awful. It's just really. I'm not going to be able to describe everything that happened in a one-time interview.
Sure.
But just suffice it to say, it is as bad as a preacher could possibly be to a child, or an adult could be to a child. The fact that as a preacher is worse. So she would tell the victim, hey, don't go on that date with that boy that asked you, or don't be in this friendship with that person. You're not ready for these type of relationships because you're not spiritually in the right place yet. And she was trying to micromanage the victim's friend group to maximize time with her. She wanted to make her the only person that mattered. And
controlling.
Yeah, very controlling, and smothering and isolating, and always telling her parents, lie about this, lie about that. And you have a victim that is now trapped.
Well, she's with her nonstop, right? This, not only the text, but she's a youth pastor,
right?
And then also there's a school association,
right? And she would tell the parents, hey, if you want, I can pick the victim up from school,
sure,
and then just pull the car over and then abuse the kid.
Oh man!
She's on a church. This is the part that's going to make people mad. But they were on a church bus, and Lindsey Whiteside put a blanket over the lap of the victim and then digitally penetrated her on a bus while there are other kids present and church leaders on the bus. It became so brazen that she's willing to use her fingers to commit the act of sexual battery of a child in the presence of other children. And you can only imagine the horror that a child would feel as they endure that.
Sure. Man, wow. Man, that is I don't even know how to explain that. And then we talk about the punishment.
Yeah, I mean, so it makes you sick just hearing what happens,
sickening.
right?
It's sickening. Yeah.
And I had it all. I had all the proof you could ever want in a case like this. And like I said, most of the time we don't have all the proof, and it's hard to get there.
But you had it all here.
We had everything.
Yeah.
It was Lindsey Whiteside did not make a statement to law enforcement, but she did not have to because we had it in her own handwriting on church letterhead. Right. We had text messages that were very sexually explicit describing what had been going on. Mm-hmm. There was no way out. Yeah. There was no going to trial. And so that's why she ended up pleading guilty, because she knew she couldn't go to trial. And we didn't, I want to make this clear because I don't think everybody understands. I cannot stop someone from pleading guilty.
Sure.
I do not have to give someone a deal to plead guilty. As a matter of fact, the last 3 cases that I was personally involved in that pled guilty all pled with no deals in place. Mm-hmm. I had a case that was 2 counts of attempted murder. I had a sexual abuse case of a child where the guy was facing life in prison. And then I had this one. Those were the last 3 that I personally handled that pled guilty. And all 3 of them pled with no deal in place because I would not make them one.
Sure.
And I asked for the max in all of them. And I didn't get the max in all of them, but I did not make deals with these people because, and they knew they had to plead guilty because I was willing to go to trial, and they knew they couldn't win. So their only play at this point is to go to the judge and say, hey, I'm holding myself accountable. I don't need you to teach me a lesson. I already know the lesson. Mm-hmm. Give me some leniency or whatever. And so that's what happened here. She pled guilty with no deal in place. She's facing 30 years in prison.
She knows she was got. So
she had, There's no way around it.
Probably her attorney's like, hey, man, they got everything. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, there's no way for you to even try to. I can't even defend you. I may be the best attorney in the whole region, but I can't defend this.
Right. Yeah. There's no way to get out of the proof. Mm-hmm. All you can do then is just damage control and beg for mercy.
So then she just pleads guilty.
So she pleads guilty, and we go to court on Monday. She pleads guilty. We do a sentencing hearing where we put on evidence. We had the victim testify. She testified for almost an hour.
Man, that's unbelievable strength that young lady had.
This is the most brave girl I've ever met.
Let's talk about her without naming her. Just talk about how brave she is and amazing.
So I told her before we went to court, I don't know how this is going to go. The judge can choose anything he wants, technically. But you don't need a judge to pick a number for you to feel good about yourself. This girl shines brighter than the midday sun. You can tell when you sit down with her that she is. It's hard not to get emotional. I feel attached.
You've been with her for a year.
I feel attached to her and her family. But if you spend time with her, if you sit across the table with her, she is a pure reflection of what's good in this earth, and she knows herself now better than any other 18-year-old possibly could because of what she's been through. She's been to a dark place where she had to find some sort of courage and strength in her deep down that most people never have to dig that far down to find. And that's how she became to know herself. And that's how she is now in touch with a strength that can never be taken away from her.
Sure.
And she is brave, and you can tell that she has a strong relationship with Christ. I believe in Jesus. I'm not the most spiritual or religious person, but I believe in Jesus, and I believe that it's only through His grace that someone can become that strong. And I think she found a victory in Jesus just by learning who she is and learning that no one can stop her. I honestly believe that there's nothing in this world that will ever stop her because of what she's overcome and the person that she's able to be because of it. She's loving and kind. She's talented. She's interested in theater and art. She's very well spoken. She presents herself very well. She's easy to talk to. She's very relatable. I think the thing that's so great about her is if you have a conversation with her, you'll almost immediately feel some sort of connection.
Sure.
There, you meet certain people that are just kind of that way. And she truly is a very special person. And I'm very proud of her because I've met so many people that could never do that. Most of the time, my victims begged not to have to speak, but she wanted
to face her accuser in court.
She did.
The defendant in court. I mean, she had to face her, like at the sentencing hearing, correct?
Right. She was. Wow. She looked her in the eyes and she said, "You do not have a hold on me anymore."
Wow.
And in that moment, I had chills all over my body because I felt that she was liberated from the control this defendant had on her.
Power.
Now, I'm not saying that this is just not going to affect her in the future. There's pain that you never get rid of. You just learn to put away somewhere. You learn healthy ways of coping. But she is liberated now because she spoke up for herself. And even though the system failed her with the sentence, she will not be held down by anybody. I told her after it was over that I honestly feel like she's like a rocket ship at a launching pad about to just take off straight up.
Right.
The trajectory for this girl is out of this world, and I don't think anything will slow her down.
And she has an amazing family behind her, probably a great support group of friends. And
I've gotten to know some of them through the process. I knew her grandpa just a little bit before this started, not much, just kind of in passing. I feel close to this family now, and she's very fortunate to have a family that cares and supports her because a lot of people in abusive situations don't have that.
Right.
And so
it's usually why they're singled out, because by the molester, that's what I'll just call it. They're usually singled out that way because there is a weakness in the family dynamic, and here there wasn't really, other than they just sharing their trust from a power of influence.
Yeah, she had personal vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And certain, and that's what Lindsey Whiteside used to take advantage of. She knew which levers of control and sympathy and to pull.
Calculating.
Very calculating.
Yeah.
And so it's just awful. And so we asked for we had the court hearing. She testified, her parents testified. Michelle Henley from the school board testified. She was an adverse witness, and then the defense had their testimony. The whole thing was a little more than 4 hours, maybe 4.5. I don't know. A lot of very intense testimony, and the judge heard exactly how egregious it was. I mean, you've heard what I could tell you in a quick summation. Imagine hearing all that for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, I talked to the guy that does TVMO, Mark Bullock, and he's like, man, like it was intense in there.
He was there.
I know he was one of the few guys that was allowed in there to kind of look at it and see it. So he did a good article on it. But like there again, the thing that he was talking about to me was like, man, some of the testimony that came out, I think it even shocked some of her supporters. Like the faces, the heads went down.
Well, she spent so much time lying to everybody that no one knew how bad it was. They just knew what they'd been told by their friend or their family member or whatever their relationship to Lindsey is. And they knew from, social media posts and things like that Lindsey was going to plead guilty. They knew that she was wrong, but they, I guess, didn't maybe know how wrong.
Right.
And I don't think Lindsey's, well, actually, I'm quite certain Lindsey is a very dishonest person. She's a serial liar. I mean, she's a compulsive liar. And so no one really knew the truth of what happened. And there's certain people on her side that are never going to believe the truth of what happened because they're too attached. But I think there was definitely shock on both sides about just how vile and evil this whole thing was. And that's what makes this sentence so shocking. So we get to that point at the end. The victim asked for 30 years. Both her parents asked for 30 years. We asked for 30 years. And then the judge gave us nothing. He said 3 years of house arrest.
And it's not really house arrest. Explain what she's got to do, by the way.
Yeah, so it's 3 years house arrest, 7 years probation, total 10 years of quote-unquote supervision. Mm-hmm. And house arrest is a joke, okay?
Yeah.
House arrest
There's
means...
people in drug court's got more overall oversight than a house arrest.
A drug court is harder than house arrest.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, exactly.
Guaranteed,
yeah.
I promise.
Yeah.
And so house arrest means she can go to whatever restaurant she wants, she can get a job, she can go to church, she can go anywhere that a child predator can't go. She can't go to a playground, she can do just about anything else.
Right.
As long as she's home by, 10 o'clock.
Right. And stays there till 6 a.m., and then she's back out on whatever she wants to do.
Yeah, exactly. She's a totally free person.
Pretty much living her life.
Yeah, and that's why I said as soon as it was over, I held a press conference. It's out there.
I seen it. I think everybody's seen it, bro.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
So I said it from the start. That sentence is an abomination.
Yeah.
It is everything that's wrong with our system. It sends the wrong message. I don't know how anybody would be a victim of a crime and want to come forward when they see this is the result.
Yeah, it doesn't give me hope.
Yeah.
You know?
But I would encourage people, though, that this was one bad judge, and I don't mind saying it.
Yeah.
This was one bad judge that made a horrible choice. We are getting better results with our judges.
Sure.
So don't give up on your
Desoto
own.
County.
Yeah, don't give up on your own journey.
Yeah.
Please give me a chance to help you if you need it. Don't be silent, because we are here for you, and there are things we can do. I'm not giving up on this case either.
I know. You said you're going to take it to the far as you can take it to get it, changed.
Yeah. I mean, my options are obviously very limited at this point, but
sure.
And that's the part where, I've said some things out there, and I'll just say, without saying more than I should, that we always consider every option we have. And at this point, we're at least going to challenge the sentence as being illegal, because house arrest is not for violent offenders or sex offenders. It's actually sex offenders and violent criminals are not allowed on house arrest. So we are challenging that. The judge will have a choice to either make a decision without hearing from us, or he can give us a hearing so we can be heard on the record in open court. But we are challenging the sentence because it is illegal. We are asking him to amend it to a legal sentence, which will give us one more chance to ask for prison time.
Sure.
It's with the same judge, so I'm not optimistic. But I feel like I have to advocate for my victim every chance I get.
Matthew, I'm not sure. He may not be. I mean, with the outrage, this guy has to have some sense of like, holy crap, what have I done? Like, this whole community's in an uproar.
Yeah, he has a chance to say, okay,
I made a mistake. Yeah, like he has a chance.
I got to do something now.
Yeah.
And so we're going to give him that chance. If his sentence is still illegal at the end of the day.
So his quote was, by the way, not to interrupt you on that, but his quote was, and you do a better job than I was. So what was his quote about prison?
He said prison is for people we're scared of.
Yeah. And
he didn't think she would reoffend. I don't know what's scarier than a threat you can't see coming.
You can't see it coming, man.
It's awful. And I'll tell you something that really irritates me about that is, he's a special judge, so I don't get in front of him a lot. Yeah. I've been in front of him twice on sex cases. The first time was a 19-year-old black boy who was accused of sexual assault against an almost 14-year-old girl. And the girl did not testify. She did not want to show up at a hearing. She did not even want to prosecute. She actually signed a refusal to prosecute. My victim signed a refusal to prosecute. And I said, I understand, but I'm not giving you that choice because this is too egregious for me to let it go.
Just the agent itself is too egregious.
I can't let it go. Something has to be done. I said, there's things I can do to help you to make this easier, but we're not letting it go. And so I was able to get a guilty plea with no deal in place, by the way. And she did not have to testify. And I asked for 30 years in that one. Judge Howarth said in that case, which was about a month ago, he said that his opinion was that particular 19-year-old boy was unlikely to reoffend. But because of the nature of it, he still need to go to prison.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you say that this 19-year-old on an almost 14-year-old girl is not going to reoffend, but is going to go to prison for 7 years with 8 years of probation, which was also an illegal sentence because that was supposed to be a 20-year minimum.
Right.
But it's also a case where my victim had refused to cooperate, and it's just hard to get to.
So you got to take what you got. Yeah, right.
And so then you compare that to this case where we have a larger age gap, we have an older defendant, and we have a position of trust and authority, and we have a victim that spoke directly to the judge for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And he says she's not likely to reoffend. I'm not scared of her. So we're not going to do any prison time.
Right.
So I've never pulled the race card, but I have to say, there's kind of like ipso facto a type of bias when you do a 0 prison time sentence on a sex offender like this. I honestly believe that if the defendant were a man or a different color, it'd be a different outcome, only because that's the way I've always seen it.
Right, it's just what's to happen. The statistics say. Right?
That's been my personal experience, and I think that she benefited, and I said this in my press conference, she benefited from a gross double standard.
Yeah.
And it's not right. Just because you had a female victim and a female perpetrator doesn't change anything. Just because the perpetrator was female and white doesn't change anything.
Right.
I want her to be punished the same way that everyone else is.
Sure.
And I'm seeking harsh penalties on people.
With no deals, by the way.
Yeah, with no deals.
Yeah, I like that.
And sometimes we have to make a deal.
Sure.
But when I'm personally involved in a case, it's probably good indication there's not going to be a deal.
Yeah, they know. Like,
I picked that person
Barton's
because
on me.
I picked that case because I want them. I put a target on that person's back. I'm not giving them a break.
Sure.
And so, but on this one, the judge gave her a break.
Yeah. Hopefully, man, he's getting the message. Like, he's got to be. I mean, I'm sure there's very few cases in his history that's blown up like this in his face, to where it's just like, man, what were you thinking? Like, you're not smarter than the rest of this world.
Yeah.
I don't care what you are, who you are. That I think that 99.9. I mean, they all agree this was an egregious situation. You know, I seen somebody on social media. It might have been on TVMO, where the lady was trying to saying consensual stuff, and I'm like, lady, get off the page. Nobody's understanding what you're saying. This is a child, period. It doesn't matter about consent or anything else. Had a position of power and authority in 2 different ways, right? Teacher or coach or whatever it was, and also a pastor, a youth pastor. That's a game over. That's a child, period. All the age of consent stuff goes out the window at that point in time.
Yeah, so, that doesn't exist. We're talking about a child. And
I think this person was an attorney, by the way, actually. Yeah. So it was wild to me. But anyway, with that being said, I think one of the biggest issues that I think the whole public that might witness this, I mean, or see this show, I think they all echo your sentiment. I don't think anybody's like, oh, he's out of his mind. No, man, I think we're all with you on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's an abomination.
So with that being said, let's talk about the supporters a little bit. I know that's really got you fired up, So, some people of the school board, teachers, members of the church at the Get Well Church that supported her. I mean, there was other issues going on where people hired her in a job, and then there was some conflict out there. People got arrested. There's other stuff going on deeper and deeper. This thing is bigger than just the case itself, it's a lot of folks are entangled in this from a legal standpoint.
Yeah, I was very much surprised by the amount of people in the community that absolutely knew she was pleading guilty, but still wanted to support her.
Yeah.
And, one that I singled out was Michelle Henley. She's on the school board. She's an elected official. Mm-hmm. She's in a position of trust or authority over the kids. Well, she thought that she could file this letter, that it would be under seal and that no one would see it, and no one would ever call her to the carpet for it.
Right.
And I saw the letter on Wednesday night when it got turned into me. The attorneys, they gather up all these character letters, they turn them into the judge, they turn them into me at the same time.
Sure.
As soon as I got that, I issued a subpoena, and I said, I'm going to have to discredit her testimony to make sure that it doesn't damage my case too much.
Sure.
And plus, quite frankly, I indulged myself in saying, you know what, I'm not going to let her get away with this.
Mm-hmm.
She's elected to a position to protect kids. I'm not going to let her get away with this without having to answer to it. So I put her on the stand. We were able to prove, or she admitted that she did not know the facts of the case before she wrote the letter. Mm-hmm. And she did it anyways because her daughter asked her to, which basically means her daughter said, hey, Mom, do you mind saying you're from the school board and you want to help Lindsey Whiteside? Mm-hmm. And she just says, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. And so that's the exact opposite of what we need in our school system. So it's there's nothing about this story or this case that's funny, but I do find it almost humorous that I had this letter demanding her resignation in my hand while I was asking her questions. And when she got off the stand, I gave it to her before she could even get back to her seat.
Wow.
And so, that's been published too. But she was helpful. Macon Moore was a former police chief in South Haven. Mm-hmm. He was also helpful to Lindsey Whiteside, and that's inexcusable. I subpoenaed him as well. He travels a lot for his current job, which is selling ammo to law enforcement agencies. Because he was out of the state and I didn't know about his support until the last minute, he was not able to be personally served. He did receive a call from the sheriff's office, and they said, hey, look, you got the subpoena. This is the court date. This is the time. It's from the district attorney. And Macon Moore told them, okay, I will be there. That's the message that was relayed to me. He knows about it. He said he'll be there. Come to find out, he decided to go to Louisiana on Monday instead, which shows where he stood on everything.
Sure.
I wanted a chance to discredit him as well, to prove that he didn't know anything about the facts of the case, but he was doing a favor. Come to find out, I learned this after the fact, Lindsey Whiteside's grandparents were crying to him at church, like, please help her, so he wrote a letter.
Yeah.
But there's no excuse, because he's in law enforcement for 34 years. He knows what that letter's for, and it was a very nice letter, by the way.
Yeah.
For
good
her.
Job. Yeah. Good job, sir.
Yeah, you did it. And so, it's a big problem, and I wanted to discredit him, and I didn't get the chance because he was able to stay out of town.
Well, you did, though, because I think on your Facebook page today, you give him a little shout out.
Well, I did. Well, I've discredited him in public because he deserves that. I wanted to discredit him in front of the judge.
Right.
But honestly, at this point, I don't think it would have mattered. I think the judge knew what he was doing walking into it.
Right. And by the way, for people that are watching or listening or whatever, he got all those letters from all those people, and he read them.
Yeah, he did.
And there was people pleading for his leniency for this young lady. And man, look, at the end of the day, it's pedophilia.
Yeah.
And as simple as that.
And here's the thing. A victim is not going to call 100 people and say, hey, please write a letter. Victims don't want to talk about it.
Oh, man.
And so the fact that a pedophile could get that much support really shocked me. When we saw that come in, we wrote a memo to the judge arguing why this was egregious and why he should sentence on the high side that we would be asking for all we could get, and try to balance the perspective a little bit before he showed up.
Which, by the way, there was a case a couple years ago. It was almost identical to this one. You remember it? Female teacher at DeSoto Central, and I think she got like 20 years for a very similar incident.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit before me.
Yeah, but I mean, still though.
But that's the expectation, is that these teachers are supposed to get hit hard. Yeah. These church pastors are supposed to get hit hard.
Because you're in a position of influence and power.
Exactly.
Yes, all that stuff. It carries a heavier weight in the courtroom because of your position.
The fact that someone would use that position in a church demonstrates the lengths they will go to in order to reach your kids.
Yeah. Well, we know that's we know that's kind of where they like to go, schools and churches, because that's the access.
They go where there's not, they think there's opportunity.
And look, man, I don't want to knock our amazing superintendent at the schools. Like, we got to be careful with that because they do a good job. It's very, very hard to, the wolf in sheep clothing, as we talk about. They do a really good job at hiding, calculating, all those things. So it's very difficult when they hire them. I mean, certainly not hiring somebody with a history of it. So how do you know until you know,
So, from that perspective, some things you don't know until you know. So
Yeah.
the way to judge somebody, or the way to judge an institution is, well, what did you do when you found out?
Yeah, that's the answer. Yeah.
And that's what we're about to see.
Yeah.
And you mentioned our superintendent, Corey Usselton is in a tight spot because he's actually appointed by the school board. I don't think people understand that.
That's right.
And so I want to give him a little help.
Yeah.
The fact is, the school board appoints him, and then he runs the school.
Yeah.
So when a school board official does something like Michelle Henley did,
yeah,
there's nothing he can do about it.
He can't fire them. That's not his job.
He can't. Yeah. And so
he's getting some heat right now, and they don't, and rightfully so. I'm glad you said that, because it's not his job to defend her, fire her, any of that stuff.
Yeah, as it relates to Michelle Henley.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, the rest of it, I don't have an opinion of, because I really don't know how the school's handling things right now.
Sure.
I know that they're getting a lot of attention for this.
Oh man.
And I think that's good, because people need to be concerned about the safety of their kids, and I think the schools need to be concerned about that too. And so
I think they're always concerned. To be honest with you, Matthew, I think that the principals, I mean, that's the biggest nightmare in the world, is having a teacher or an assistant teacher or a janitor, anybody in their school that is a potential predator for their children. Yeah. I think that is a very nightmarish scenario for them.
It's the worst case scenario for them. And so I think the thing people are going to be looking at now is, okay, what culture are we going to set in our school? Are we going to have a culture where, the school board official who defended a child predator, which, by the way, the victim was a student at the schools.
At the same school.
The abuse did not happen at the schools, but the student was, or the victim was a student at the schools.
Mm-hmm.
So
that she represents.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so you have to side with your kid, period. Mm-hmm. So I'll be interested to see, how everybody that does have the authority to act within the school responds to, having her there.
Yeah, I know you asked for a resignation. I'm sure you probably hadn't heard from her.
No,
I'm pretty sure.
I'm not going to.
Yeah. However, I don't, it doesn't sound good from my ears, like from what I'm hearing, but I don't know everything. And like you said, you were saying that she did it upon a request of her child and at the time she didn't know the case, but she should have. As a responsible school board member, you should have investigated before you just wrote a letter, especially when it's dealing with pedophilia.
Yeah, you don't lend the prestige of your elected office to help somebody without knowing what you're doing. And I asked her on the witness stand, did you understand that this was going to be used in a sentencing hearing? Did you understand that the purpose of these character letters is to help Lindsey Whiteside get a favorable outcome? That I'm asking for one thing and she's asking for less. Yeah. She understood all that when she wrote the letter.
Wow. Well, there you have it, man. I mean, so you were right, to ask for it. So, and then these folks that, I understand too, she misled a lot of people within her church, in her community, and her friends and family. So I think as Mark had said, Bullock, TVMO, again, I'll give him a little shout out, was saying this when he was in the courtroom. He said, man, I was really watching, like when this stuff was going, I was looking around, he said faces were dropping, jaws were dropping of her supporters, because they were not aware of the reality of what really went on, during the court, or during the proceeding. Yeah.
And I think that, that.
I bet they'd like to recant their letters right now, some of them.
I'm sure some of them are sitting at home right now worried that, or wishing that maybe they didn't, but they did, and they knew what they were doing when they did it. And, I think there's no place in our society for supporting a pedophile. Period. I'm not going to apologize for it.
Man, look, I have this idea of, and you may be aware of this. I've said this before, but I watched a documentary some years ago, like 20 plus years ago, in Washington. The state has what they call a pedophile island. To where once they even get out of prison for their sentence, because maybe some of the sentences were light because it's a liberal area, Seattle and whatnot, they had a place where they'd send them to for indefinite mental evaluation, and they just don't leave. It's like an indefinite, I think we need one. We could put one right off the coast of Mississippi down there. We got an island, I'm sure. I bet we could find the funds, because you can't rehabilitate that. I don't think so. My personal opinion is.
I agree with you.
And so they just can't be walking around in society. It's evil. It's evil at the very core of it all. I mean, I just don't think I've seen it before with a teacher some years back at our little local school, to where 20 victims, and they pled with him because they didn't want to put the young ones through it. They were all kind of prepubescent kids and stuff, or right at the age of junior high school. And, it was kind of crazy at the time because we all kind of knew the person. Again, I think Champion was probably the prosecutor at the time. And he had a ton of support from some teachers still, like knowing he was guilty, man, of that many. I mean, when there's smoke, there could be fire. But in this case, there was like 20 fires. You know what I mean? There was so much evidence, and they were still supporting him. And to this day, I don't understand that. I just don't get it. I couldn't even, these were even like little babies. They were young, they weren't even a teenager yet, like you would say, like a teenager could have some, I don't want that, or whatever. But typically a young child is even worse, right? When you get below the prepubescent age, that's where it really gets serious charges going on. Had that been the case here, she'd be in prison right now, regardless of whatever, I promise. And if it'd been me or you, we'd be in prison, I believe. So
guaranteed.
Yeah, it's a double standard for sure. And I think that society sees that away a little bit. But I think, really, man, I think there's just a collective agreement on the outrage of the sentence. And I hope when you have this opportunity to represent, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
I hope he sees that, because, man, he's got to get around in public too. And this thing's far reaching. People are going to be on him about that. Like, I'm certainly right now, he's just like getting lit up if there's a possibility. I'm wondering if he's on social media.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's.
I bet his family is.
I'll tell you there's no way that he doesn't know the reaction.
Oh my gosh, man. How could you not? You're everywhere. Every time I pull up something, it's like, D.A. Barton's, something else, So I know you feel like, wow, I didn't know I said that and it was going to get so much attention, but.
Yeah, I didn't want this to have notoriety.
Yeah, you didn't want to
I just knew there was a public interest that was building up ahead of the actual court date.
Right.
And I knew that questions would need to be answered. I don't think that it would have gotten near as much attention if it was a normal outcome. I think the people that were previously interested would have been like, okay, well, that's what happened.
Yeah, that's right.
And everybody would have moved on.
Yeah. If they just gave her 10 years and like 10 years more probation, the rest of your life, you got to register as a sex offender.
Yeah.
Most people would have been like, all right, I can live with that. You know what I mean? Let's get this young lady some help. The victim needs, get all the support, the help she can get, and then let's help this family, because it don't just stop with the young lady, by the way. I want to say that to people. This affects her parents, her siblings, her grandparents.
She's got
everything.
Yeah,
man.
She has younger siblings that have to ask, why is our older sister going through this?
Yeah, man.
And they're too young to have to deal with that, but they do have to deal with that, and it affects a family.
Yeah.
You're not ruining one life. You're turning a whole family upside down.
Man,
and this is a large family. These are people that are close to each other. And so when someone you love is hurting, you're going to hurt too. And
what I would say, I'm not affiliated with the church, but I will say this. Shame on you for not supporting the victim in this case.
Yeah.
Get well, church, because whatever you got to do to support your pastor, that's fine. But if you have any question that this is an issue, and you knew you were because you were trying to investigate it yourself, just from me as a person, I can have my personal opinion. I just think shame on you for not taking the victim's side first and foremost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before anything else happened, you support the family. You support the child, period. That's how it works. You know?
And I don't mind saying it, because the fact is, it was very mismanaged by the church.
Yeah.
And I was appalled when I found out that there was not a pastor willing to show up and be with the victim in court because they were worried about dividing a congregation.
Come on, man.
I'm sorry. I believe in the Bible that's where Jesus said that if you offend or harm one of these little children, that it's better you have a millstone hung about your neck and you sink to the depths of the ocean.
Yeah.
I believe in the Jesus that threw tables over at the temple when the house of God was not being used for the right purposes.
Right.
And now you have somebody that is sexually assaulting a child while at church functions.
And you know this, by the way. They knew all of it.
And I can't say exactly the extent of what they knew, but they knew they knew that she had broken the law, and they still were not willing to be there. And here's another thing, and I think this needs to be a teaching moment for anybody, because you need to make sure your churches understand this, what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
If there is an accusation that a church leader broke the law against a child, the thing to do is to call the police or the sheriff, depending on where you are, so that their trained professionals can get in there and do what they're supposed to do. The exact wrong thing to do is investigate it yourself, because that puts the perpetrator on notice that people are paying attention, and now they have a chance to hide evidence. Now they have a chance to go and manipulate the victim or the victim's parents, or start pulling people in on their side.
Change the narrative.
They get to change the narrative to other people in the church, and they get to draw in support. No matter how well-meaning your intentions may be, you are absolutely screwing things up as a church when you start trying to investigate and talking to a perpetrator before you call the law. That's what smells like a cover-up.
Yeah.
And that's not good. And I'll say this too, and I don't mind saying it. When we first got this case file, it was clear to me that the church did an investigation themselves before the law was able to be involved.
Right.
And so I said, well, if they investigated something, let's see what they found.
Yeah.
So I sent the investigators from my office to go talk to church officials. And I felt like their answers were evasive. I felt like they were not helpful. I think they were interested in their business. And I think that is wrong. That's not what I believe in.
They didn't want to lose their financial support, like when you divide a church, which was what was going to happen. You know what I mean? And that's unfortunate, and I applaud you for saying that, because, man, children first, period. It don't matter, ever. I don't care what church, what school, whatever, children first, period. Until we figure out right or wrong, whatever happened, didn't happen, doesn't matter. The child's got to come first.
Put the trained professionals on it and just get out of the way.
Yeah, get out of the way. Yeah, you're not smarter, nor are you, Mr. Judge, whatever his name was.
Andy Howarth.
Andy Howarth. You are not that intelligent, sir. You're supposed to be in retirement, by the way.
I wish you'd go back to that.
Yeah, let's get him back to it.
I hope after this experience he does not accept another case in DeSoto County.
Well, yeah, I hope so too, and I hope that the powers to be don't allow it. You know what I mean?
I'll say, here's the thing to think about for voters. The only oversight we have over circuit judges, and this is true for me too as district attorney, is the voters. And so if you don't want bad things like this to happen, elect good judges.
Sure.
Right now, we have a third judge. Before, when this case was handed down, we only had two. We have Judge Doug Hollowell is on the bench. I was very happy to hear about him becoming a circuit judge. I think the world of him. So now we have three positions.
Mm-hmm.
And in January, we will have elections for judges.
Okay.
And now that we have three instead of two, the chances of us having all three recused versus two
very low
is a lot lower.
Yeah.
So hopefully we won't be having special judges nearly as much. But think about your judges and how they're lined up in the community and how that aligns with what you believe, and then vote your conscience and pay attention to what they do. Because if you don't pay attention to what they do, they'll keep doing it. And if it's not good, you can't stop them.
It's different than having any other official. Like, I would say, from sheriff to DA to judges is maybe the most essential positions. It's not like a mayor or an alderman. That's different. It's just a different thing. You guys are making very serious decisions I'm not saying they don't, but I'm just saying it's different when you're dealing with the legalities, the real serious issue. A mayor or whoever, he don't have to deal with sexual abuse cases or anything. He hears about them. He might come to you and go, look, Matt, I need you to really put the fire out over here, man. Put it on them. They may have that ability, but they're not dealing with it. It's a different thing. They're dealing with way less, more important issues than you are. So you're right. It's essential. Look at it. Look at their cases, how they've judged, sentences passed down. Take all those things into consideration when you're voting for your next judicial group here in the local community. So,
yeah, absolutely.
DeSoto County. But anything else you want to add to that? I think we've covered a lot. Is there something you want to add to this Lindsey Whitehead case?
Yeah, I've talked about that case for so much in the last 2 or 3 days. It's almost becoming a blur. I think the main thing is I want people to know that our office is working as hard as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And even when we don't get the outcome we want, we're going to show up the next day and keep working. And, we do put out information about what we do, and we try to keep y'all informed. There were a lot of people that were asking questions and calling in about this case before I could talk about it. Mm-hmm. And I hope that by the time you got to this point in the show, you realize I am willing to talk freely. I am willing to be transparent. So next time, be patient. If I'm not talking, it's because it's not the right time to talk.
Right. And he might come on the Local Yokels podcast and talk about it again.
I will talk about anything when it's the right time and it doesn't hurt the case. And I'm happy to be here today.
And especially the victims, like that's the thing, like transparency. I know even sometimes we want our local law enforcement agencies to be more transparent. And sometimes they just can't be because there's an investigation going on and it's about victims, protecting the victims' rights as well as your office as well, whether it be the police department. We can't know everything all the time until there's time to know.
Yeah, and so my position on that is tell people as much as you can, as soon as you can, as often as they want to know.
Yeah.
And that's all people can ask for, and so I'll certainly always give you that. But please understand that sometimes even if you don't see what we're doing, we're working. And we can't always talk about it.
That's right.
Because, there's strategy involved and there's implications. But I want you to know that we are going to be working on this case. We are going to be working hard. We are going to be pursuing options. We're just not going to always be able to talk about everything.
That's right. That's right. And when you can, you will. You know what I mean? Right. When it's closed out, then we can talk about it. And man, thank you for coming on. I mean, it was coincidental as all get out, in a way with this case. We talked about that, but I'm glad it happened when it happened so you could get some things straightened out because you don't get long form sit downs like this very often.
No, I really don't.
And I want to thank you for trusting me to allow to do this with you because you got plenty of people you could go to, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I was happy to be here.
And again, just keep up, keep hounding, keep putting the pressure on those criminals and let them know that we're going to put them under the jail. You're going to do all that good stuff. What was your quote? You're going to change their address to Parchman, Mississippi. I think it was the exact quote you had. So.
And when I was running, I was running for election the same time as Sheriff Tuggle.
Yeah.
And we were elected on the same ballot, obviously different races. But
sure.
I was saying back then, I told him and I was telling people as I was knocking on their door, the sheriff is going to pick up the trash, and I'm going to take it out.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. You might not always see us in the same room at the same time, but we're always working together.
Well, you may not always agree on everything either.
No, that's impossible.
It's impossible.
We have way too many cases and way too many personalities involved in these cases to agree on everything, but we are always united. And, when one case is over, we got 100 more coming up.
Oh, my gosh, man.
So... Yeah. When we disagree, we're done with that. It's never personal.
Yeah.
I have good relationships with all law enforcement in this county, and we're steadily working and pushing because we understand that your quality of life depends on us doing a good job.
Yeah.
And we take it seriously.
Listen, I love the fact where I live in this great, safe area. I mean, it is, and I love the fact that we can move around with a confidence knowing that, we got a lot of people behind us trying to protect us, trying to keep the criminals away, keep our property safe. Yeah, there's some bad ones and they're catching them and they're putting them away, guys. Just know that. So anyway, man, thank you for coming in. I appreciate you doing this episode of the Local Yokels Podcast. I know you had a lot of other places you could be. And this is later at night, by the way, when we're filming this. So he had a lot of things to be doing with his family. So thank you, my friend, for coming in, sharing all the details. And, of course, we talked about how you're going to continue to work hard, protecting the citizens of Desoto County. And I really appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Thanks, guys. See ya.